So have you ever wondered how to shoot long exposure photography? Well, you do so using one of these. This is an ND filter. In this video, I'm going to be explaining how to shoot long exposure photography, giving you some tips, some challenges to avoid, and also showing you exactly how to use one of these. All that coming up. Hey guys, my name is David Johnson. On this channel, I help you improve your landscape photography. If you're into that, go ahead and hit subscribe. Let's jump right into this. So the first thing you need for long exposure photography is a moving subject, and that can be anything moving like clouds in the sky. That can be movement of water in a lake or a pond, or that can even be movement of water in a waterfall. Why do you need movement? Well, if you just take a photo, a long exposure photo of nothing moving, let's just say a barn and a clear blue sky, you're not going to get anything different than you would of just taking a still, click, one frame shot. With a long exposure shot, what you're looking for is that movement to add that really dynamic, interesting element to the photo. With a long exposure, clouds streak across the sky, water creates this nice smooth surface that has reflections on it as well. So when you have movement, your photo kind of takes on a new life, and that's what you want for a long exposure. Now the challenge of this comes in when you don't want certain parts of your photo moving at all. For example, this could be moving leaves in any wind. That's going to show up as blurred motion in a long exposure photo, so just be aware of that. You can find waterfalls that are just next to rocks, and that'll solve that problem. Or you can do something like taking two frames, a quick frame for the leaves and the foliage around the waterfall, and then a long exposure for the waterfall itself, and blend those together in post-processing. That's a quick workaround on how to do that. Let's talk settings real quick on what you need in a long exposure photo. For me, I'm using manual everything for my camera for long exposure photos, and I'll explain why. First, I want a 30-second exposure. That allows me to photograph and get that movement, streaking clouds, smooth water, whatever you want as the moving element in your photo, and create a lot of that movement in the frame. Then I'm using something like f11 for my aperture, and for ISO, I'm using anywhere from a range of 100 to even up to 800. Anything that helps me balance out that exposure. My ISO is going to be my least important of these, and I'm just going to leave that at whatever balances the exposure. For focusing, I'm going to be using manual focus, and I'm going to be explaining why that is in just a minute. Real quick, if you're getting any value out of this, go ahead and hit the thumbs up to like it. Comment if you're using long exposure photos already, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already either. All right, before we get to that manual focus and why you want to use that, I want to talk about these. These are ND filters. This is what allows you to actually darken the photo, put it on the ends of your lens and darken the photo so that less light gets in and you're able to lengthen that exposure. If you look at this, I mean, this is completely black. You can't see through it at all. But with a 30-second exposure, that allows that light to come in. You can even use a longer exposure if you want to, something like a bulb setting on your camera and a cable release to allow you to do that. But with these, I think 30 seconds is good for me. Sometimes in lower light, if you're not shooting in the middle of the day, you're going to need something longer than 30 seconds when you're using a 10-stop ND filter like this one is. This is one from Polar Pro. I'll link that below in the pinned comments so you can check that one out if you want to. Now for this, the really important thing to remember is your thread size on your ND filter. What a thread size is telling you what lenses this is going to match with. If you see right here on the thread, this says 67 millimeters. So on my lenses, I'm going to be sure that I'm using a 67 millimeter thread on my lens. That's usually around the ring of your lens, or it's on the inside of your lens cap. Mine says 67 right there, so these match. I'm good to go. And all you do is just connect this and spin it and tie it into the end of your lens, and you're good to go. Now, here's why you want to use manual focus with this, because when you put this on the end of your lens, and if you're using autofocus, what happens is your camera can't see anything because it's not seeing in 30-second exposures. It's just seeing in real time. So if you put this on the end of your lens and then hit go to focus, it's going to search for that focus because it's going to think that the lens cap is still on, and it's just going to not find a focus, knock everything off. If you're using manual focus, before you actually connect this ND filter, you just focus to whatever you want, set that, hit manual focus, put the ND filter on, and you know you have sharp focus to your subject wherever you want that to be. Using these tips, you're going to get great long exposure photography. If you want more tips on your landscape photography, click or tap the card on your screen right now. And here's also a video I think you're really going to like too.